I'm Scat E and you're watching the EveryGamer. So, do you want to hang out and stuff? By which, of course, I mean review Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. Huh? The Scott Pilgrim phenomenon started with the Scott Pilgrim graphic novels created by Brian Lee O'Malley. Then came the game, then the movie. The books are very creative and very funny, and I highly recommend them. But we're not here for them. We're here for the game. Both the game and the movie follow the books very closely story-wise, so if you're worried about spoilers, you may want to put off on both, or even watching this, until you've read the books. That being said, the game's more about action than story, and it does take some liberties, so you'll really only have to contend with visual spoilers. The Scott Pilgrim story contains a giant homage to video games, so if you grew up a gamer, you'll notice some subtle and not so subtle references to past video games. If you were a fan of River City Ransom on the NES, and you've ever wondered, why haven't they remade this? Well, here you go. So as I'm going through this, please feel free to post any comments or questions down below, but let's get to it. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game available on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network. The game won't take you too long to beat, but there is a lot to keep you entertained. The game's main story mode will have you fighting through 7 different levels, each taking roughly 10 to 20 minutes to beat. There are 3 difficulty settings to choose from, Average Joe being the lowest setting, but even that can be surprisingly difficult when you first start. Before setting out, you can choose between one of the 4 playable characters. Other than appearance, the character gameplay won't differ greatly. There is a secret unlockable character, and there's now DLC to allow you to play as Knives Chow. She's Chinese. The controls are fairly intuitive. For me, as soon as I finished downloading, I jumped straight into a game. I didn't even realize that the shoulder buttons were used. There are instructions if you want to get the most out of your game, which explains all the ins and outs. The game isn't limited to the story mode game type. There are 2 unlockable game types, and I'll include the codes in the description below. Simply put them in at the title screen, and when you hear the chime, it will permanently unlock. In Boss Rush, you'll fight against all the bosses and mini-bosses in order, and try to finish them off as quickly as possible. For survival horror, you'll have 1 life to fight off as many zombies as you can. They're slow, but they can take a lot of damage before going down. Also, their attacks have a slightly longer range than your attacks, so beware. As time goes on, more and more zombies will be thrown into the mix to try and overwhelm you. Try and keep moving and don't let them surround you. If you can get a group of them together, you can unleash a combo attack and score some major damage. Just don't let one get behind you, as you're completely vulnerable during this time. Once you go down, it's game over. Post your score and try again.
I know, I suck, surprising no one. Story mode will have you navigating 7 levels. I know, looks familiar, right? More on that later. If you're not familiar with the Scott Pilgrim story, here's the game summary to bring you up to speed. Like I said before, the story isn't integral to the game. At the beginning of the game, you'll be given the opportunity to try out some of the controls. So run around, punch and kick, and get used to things. Note that if you want a little more control, use the control pad, as the control stick will have you running more often than not. But that's not a bad thing. Also note that special moves will cost guts points, which are the blue number under your hit points. Each level will have you running through sections where you'll battle a range of enemies. You'll have a variety of moves to utilize with simple button combinations to dispatch your foes. What are they, you ask? Well, you'll unlock these moves as you level up. Each character will end up with their own interpretation of this moveset. The animations may be different, but it's basically the same moves. You can increase your stats with items that you buy at the various shops. Strength affects how hard you hit, defense affects how much damage you'll take, willpower affects your overall guts points and special attack power, and speed affects your speed. Here, Ramona has no upgrades. You'll immediately notice how much slower she is. You'll also notice that it takes more than one hit to take out the low-level thugs now. Once you defeat your enemies, they will reward you with sweet Canadian currency. Collect these coins, as you'll need the money to buy upgrades, and they will disappear if you leave them there too long. You'll progress through levels by slowly advancing forward. The game will almost always require that you defeat all the enemies on screen before allowing you to progress further. If you're confused as to why you can't move forward, it's usually because there's a door, or there's an enemy hiding slightly off screen. As the enemies will come in from off screen, they will already be poised to attack, so be aware. Once you get hit once, you'll be stunned and the enemies will typically launch into a combo. This damage can and will add up. Fortunately, when you level up, all of your stats will be replenished. The game will introduce the move that you just learned, so start throwing it into the mix now so you'll be a master at it later. Hopefully you took that sliding kick proficiency in grade 5. The first level has the main shopping area. Power up or you'll be in terrible danger. Stores carry a variety of items that range from restoring your hit points to increasing your stats. Get an item to go and your character will automatically utilize it to restore some health in a dire situation. Sorry, there are no free smiles. Fans of the comic book will appreciate the fact that most background characters are actually characters from the book. Also note, basically anything that has a star on it is a special area. Some will allow you to skip ahead and give you some free money along the way. Here, Wallace will help you with some awesome items for boosting your stats. The enemies will range from generic dudes who deal low damage and aren't much of a threat. Tougher enemies will take a bit more to take down. You'll soon encounter large amounts of enemies who will try to surround you to deal damage. Other enemies will be immune to your weaker attacks, so you'll have to use your more powerful ones to take them down. Some enemies favor throwing. Others will have special attacks or attack from a distance. All will pick their spots and hammer you with combos, but some are more prone to block absolutely everything you throw at them. Others are just annoying. The later stages will introduce powerful enemies who are not only fast, but will utilize weapons to deal immense amounts of damage. Multiplayer increases the mayhem by throwing more enemies at you. If your friend gets overwhelmed, you can encourage them back to health as long as you get to them before the timer runs out. Note that while you can't hurt your friends directly, you can by throwing or kicking items, so beware. If your friend runs out of lives, they can get back into the game by stealing one from you. At the end of each level, you'll have to defeat an evil ex-boyfriend. If bad were a boot, these guys would fit it. They'll call in allies to help, but they themselves are more powerful than any of the other enemies you'll encounter. They can be especially difficult at the lower levels as they won't take too much damage, but they will certainly deal it out. Some levels will include mini-bosses. These are basically just slightly more powerful enemies, and won't be too hard to take down. The bosses will all exhibit some form of a special move, and are usually invulnerable when they utilize it, so beware. Weather the storm, pick your spots, and eventually you'll hear collect your prize and move on to the next level. The strongest feature of this game has to be its music. Anamanaguchi did the entire soundtrack. They're a chiptune band known for utilizing the NES and Game Boy to make their music. If you enjoyed the music in old games like River City Ransom and Mega Man, you'll love this selection. As a gift, you can unlock the studio to listen to all these tracks. I'll include the code in the description below. Just enter it when you're on the map screen. All of the music in this review is from the game. There are many references to a variety of other games. You'll recognize some immediately, but some are more subtle and may eat at you or test your memory. Here's what I've noticed in my playthroughs. The game does have some issues. A game with such a great soundtrack, it's really annoying when the music doesn't play. Also, the game freezes fairly often. While a recent patch has allowed for drop-in, drop-out play for other players, the most disappointing element is that the game does not support online matchmaking. You'll also sometimes find yourself in situations where you can't progress any further. You can exit the level and return to the map screen, but you'll lose all your progress, and on some of the longer levels this can be really annoying. I found this really odd because normally you'll take some damage from a fall and then just reappear on the screen, but clearly here the game recognizes that I'm down there. Watch the ninja dive in and die. Then I get his money. This is a knockdown, drag-out brawl fest, and while not a very long game, it is very entertaining for what it costs. If you want to know more, please feel free to post any questions or comments down below. That's it for me. I'm out. Have a good one. I'll see you online.